Okay, this is going to be as short as I can possibly make it. I just recorded a 31-minute video, and that's too long. So instead, we're not going to worry about how or why this is something that should be able to be fixed locally in your environment or on your computer. But if you are getting game error 201, uh, let's go straight to what this is in particular telling us, and then I'll cover a little bit maybe at the end about the other stuff you should have already checked or you should check. But this is coming up. There's a current issue on the forums. There's been problems patching by a particular user, and they had to run a VPN to get the patch to happen, the patching to happen. Now they're running into this when they launch the game. So from my understanding is from the launcher to the client itself, the handoff generates this game error 201. Can't open the data files, check that they exist, and that you have permissions to write to them. The program will now exit. Now, as with most troubleshooting, the first thing I would do is to reinstall the prerequisites and the DirectX because they might use those things. The game might use those things to read these files. That's what Visual C++ runtimes are, is kind of the hooks that the application uses. But that aside, let's move on. Okay, assuming that's not it, let's actually go look at the game files and see if we can tell what might be wrong. Now, the first issue I would worry about is that you're actually working on the game installation that you think you're working on. If you have multiple LotRO shortcuts on your desktop or in your start menu, that's a potential problem. I'm assuming that this game has not been installed via Steam. If that is the case, then things are going to be in an entirely different location. And if that's the case, I would recommend a full uninstall and then reinstall it from the Standing Stone Games installer. Or please reply, and maybe I'll make a Steam-based version of this. But let's work with this. Okay, so here we go. Here's your Lord of the Rings Online. I want to point out permissions-wise, first and foremost, check this out. I'm double-clicking it. Notice I have not been asked for any administrative permissions. And I did not need to right-click and say run as administrator, which you can do. You right-click and say run as administrator. I don't need to do that. For day-to-day operation, you should never need to do that. If you have to do that, it's good as a test to see if maybe there's a permissions issue. But if you're having to do that day to day, then there's already a problem. There's something's already gummed up. Anyways, let me type in my password here real quick, and we'll just log in real quick. It worked. All right. So this is not my main account. So if anybody figures out how to grab that, oh well. So as you can see, it's working. I figure it's worthwhile just pointing that out. So let's come on, come on, come on. I'm tempted to just minimize it and get to work here. But as you can see, Autofer is here. We're in a virtual machine, so don't judge the performance. This is not supposed to be speedy. I'm just going to minimize it. And let's right-click, Properties, and as you can see, the target is C, Program Files, x86, Standing Stone Games, The Lord of the Rings Online, and then LotRO Launcher. I'm trying to go back to saying LotRO. Anyways, let's go there. Oh, and I meant to show you. Note, there is no, under compatibility, there is no run as administrator or compatibility modes for different operating system versions, things like that. Should not be necessary. If you're having to use that stuff, something's already gummed up in your system. I would love to fly out there, wipe your, back up your machine, wipe your system, get everything pristine, everything will run great. Fortunately, that's not possible. We have to do this remotely. So we'll just have to spot clean things. So let's go to where it told us to go. See the C drive. Now, again, there was some reference to I have the files on both C and D. That shouldn't be the case. They need to be where the game that you're launching expects them to be, and they can't be split across the launcher and the client itself. Both live in the same folder. So if you have it on another drive like D, that's fine. It'll work. But just make sure you're not confusing yourself and getting into different. Well, I think that makes sense. Anyways, here we are. C drive, program files, x86, and notice x86. I'm getting far afield. This is going to be 30 minutes again. Never mind. We're in program files, x86. We're going to go to Standing Stone Games, the Lord of the Rings Online. Now, here's the first thing I want you to check. Okay, is right-click, go to Properties. As of October 14th of 2023, it should be about 36.5 gigabytes in size. See that? All right. There should be 377 files and 51 folders. Now, I've had installations go a little weird and be missing a file. It's probably just some like log file or cache file or partially downloaded one that it didn't delete or something like that. That I wouldn't worry so much if you're off by like one file, but you should not be off substantially in size or file numbers or folder numbers. Now, LotRO, the launcher does do verifications on files every time it launches. It should check these types of things. But if you're already having trouble with the patching process, who's to say that it's getting the manifest correctly to do those checks? So that's just, you're kind of doing a spot check, manual check, human check here on the size of the folder. Okay? So if that looks decent, you compare here. If it doesn't compare appropriately, that's probably your problem. You have a corrupt install. You need to do a full uninstall and reinstall and figure out why you need to use VPN to patch it or whatever was going on, because clearly you didn't get the reinstall done or patched properly. So let's worry about permissions now. We're going to cancel this because I want to show you the best. Well, if you're on Windows 11, I can just click here as Hurin, and I can say change account settings, and it's going to say Hurin, it's a local account, and you are an administrator. But the other way to see if you are indeed an administrator, and you pretty much need to be to do any of this and to have LotRO run correctly. I am right-clicking this flag here. Sorry, I started over there. Right-click this flag, go to Computer Management. Taking its time here, and then go to you expand out local users and groups, and you have users there, and that's me, Hurin, right? Now, how do you know that's you? Well, I kind of just proved it, but I'll show you a way to do that for sure. But that's me. Then we go to groups, and we find administrators, and we double click that, and there I am amid the members of the administrators group. That's how you confirm you are an administrator. For sure. Then if you're having any trouble with that, there's a way to do it from the command line too. So I regular left clicked on this flag, and then I type CMD and hit enter, and that brings me my command prompt. And then I just type who am I, all one word, right? And it says you are on the test LotRO computer /Hurin. So it tells you your domain, even though you're not on a domain. The computer is the authentication domain here, but you are on the test LotRO computer, and your username is Hurin. And then I'm going to say net local group administrators, and there we go. As you can see there, it's saying the administrators. It gives you some background on it, but then it lists the members. The administrator account is an administrator, even though it's disabled by default, and Hurin, me. I'm an administrator, and I know that's me because I just said, who am I? I'm Hurin. Hurin it's not case sensitive, so don't worry. All right, so we've absolutely confirmed I'm an administrator. If you can't do that, that might be your problem. So back to this folder. We are at C, Program Files, x86, Standing Stone Games. the Lord of the Rings Online. Let's right click it, go to properties again, and go to security. And then we're going to go to advanced. And as you can see here, regular users can read and execute, but they can't change anything in there. And then the administrators group, which I hope we just demonstrated you are a member of, has full control. That should be the case. If not, and only do this if you are comfortable, but and you might want to have a someone else do it if not. But if administrators is not there with full control, you'll say change permissions, and you'll say, I mean, it should be. It's again, your computer is gummed up if this isn't already the case. But then you would say add, and you would say select principal, and test LotRO is the principal by default, and you would say administrators. And I usually like to hit check names, and then it checks it and underlines it if it's found. And there's the full canonical name, as they say. And you click OK. And then you say full control. And this will apply to this folder, subfolders, and files. You do not check this box, because this would only apply these permissions to objects and or containers within this container. That's actually, well, anyways, go ahead and, I'm not going to click OK here, but if you were missing this, you would click OK. And that should propagate down into that folder. The other thing you can do, making sure that the one you're working with is this Lord of the Rings Online folder at this location or wherever your shortcut led you. You can replace all child object permission entries with inheritable permission entries from this object once you've fixed it. But again, before you fix it, you should be just comparing to what we have here. Is your administrators listed there? And is it full control? And is it applying to this folder, subfolders, and files? If so, you should be good to go. You shouldn't need to do any of this. If I were desperate, I might try saying replace on all child, because we can travel down into the folder and say, well, all right, let's take a look at the forward folder and see what its permissions are. And it should be the same because they're inheriting downward. It's recursive is the word, down through each level of the folder. And as you can see, administrators still have full control. That should be the case for every file and folder in here. By the way, a lot of people see this. Is that read-only still there? Yeah. Don't worry about this read-only box. Don't mess with it. Don't click it. Don't worry about it. It's essentially vestigial. It's meaning it's not really used anymore. And I've been able to explain this and explain it to myself, and I've looked it up, but it's so not used for 20 years now that I always forget why it's even still there and why it has this default state. There's discussions about this on the LotRO forums going back years. Anyways, ignore the read-only, okay? I think we've covered it. That's permissions for the folder. You've checked the size of the folder. You've made sure it's relatively intact. Let's say you found that it isn't relatively intact, or it's otherwise just mangled. How do you uninstall? Now, obviously, there is an uninstaller, and it actually does a very good job. Oh, let's close the client. If you're going to try to reinstall the game one more time, and it can't hurt, you would come to the Documents folder. Now, the Documents folder under the Lord of the Rings Online, that's where your local stuff is kept. Your key map settings, your screenshots, and the client settings. But nothing else is, well, I should say, I'm getting far afield here, but you know, your your characters and things are stored on the server. So this is just the few little things that you do to configure the game. Your music might be stored in here if you're into the music system. But basically, if you're going to be reinstalling and you're troubleshooting and you want to start from scratch, you just come in here and you rename it. Now, the easiest way to rename is click it once and then pause and then click it again. And now you're in rename mode and you can just do this. Sorry, I'm having to mute because I'm coughing because I've been talking too much here. So that's the first thing I do before I do the reinstall. And then you just go to Control Panel and Apps and Installed Apps. And you will find that the Lord of the Rings Online uninstaller should be here. And you can say uninstall. And once it does it, we're also going to go through and confirm that it's all gone. And you can clear it out further, but there should be no real need to. We've already handled under our documents. It's when you reinstall and launch it for the first time, it's going to create a new folder here called the Lord of the Rings Online, and then you can move back over what you might need. Let's go to the C drive. Program files x86. Standing Stone Games is still there because they might have other games like Dungeons and Dragons Online, right? So there's going to be a couple of files left in here. I say nuke it. So I came back out. I'm going to right click it and trash it. And then the only other place that things are kept are under Hurin, or this would be your username, obviously. And then you need to do a backslash and say app data. And then under local, that's hidden. That's why you have to do the app data yourself. Go local, and then you can see here the Lord of the Rings Online. And these are essentially just log files. I don't have file extensions on. Let's turn those on. Show file name extensions. There. They're all log files, except for that one. Anyways, let's nuke it. So I went up back to local, found this folder here. Gone. So now you've wiped pretty much all vestiges of it out. I would then make sure you have no other shortcuts here for LotRO. And then when you reinstall it, only work with the new one that's set up. That will pretty much make it certain that you're not accidentally launching old installs that have been moved or copied around your hard drives and things like that. And hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't, we just climbed up the tree and grabbed some of the high-hanging fruit that took a little more explanation and an entire video to get done. Part of the reason on the forums that we recommend the low-hanging fruit is that there's already guides made for it, and again, it could be that some of that low-hanging fruit, the prerequisites and things like that, are actually the problem. So if you reinstall from here and you get a new fresh and everything goes smoothly, and if it doesn't go smoothly, be very precise in what stage of the installation you were in and where you ran into trouble. And then, but let's assume it goes smoothly and you get that shortcut and you double click the shortcut. What happens from there? If it's still not working, now I'm going to say, please consider reinstalling all of the prerequisites per that guide. It really can help, and it's the low-hanging fruit. If you don't pick the low-hanging fruit, but instead insist on going higher up in the tree, ever higher, because nothing is helping, nothing may be helping because you missed the low-hanging fruit. And so you're just stuck in a perpetual cycle, if that analogy makes any sense at all. So just a word about, no, you know what, I'll leave it. This type of issue does not tend to be an issue with, it does not tend to be the type of issue that Standing Stone Games can just throw a switch at their end. This is something local to your environment, local to your computer, and we know this because it works for me. It works for almost everyone else, or it works for everyone else, colloquially speaking, right? So we need to figure out what is it about your local environment or your computer that's making this not work. That's what we're trying to do here, and that's what those other guides attempt to accomplish. I went on about this longer in the other video, and I'm just going to spare us all that here. Okay, good luck.